Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That microphone we need to get fixed. If I understand correctly, that despite the fact the SEC says it's underfunded presently for its operations, the SEC is promulgating a rule so that you are going to branch out and regulate the environmental stewardship of companies within your purview. Is that correct? Am I correct when I hear that?
I'm not sure what you're referring to. Under the Dodd-Frank Act, there's a few rules we are required to adopt. One relating to Congo conflict minerals, one relating to payments to resource extraction issuers to governments, and one relating to mine safety. Are those what you're referring to?
The information I got was not that specific, that program specific. If that's all there is, then I'm not really that concerned.
On the rule proposals, those are rule proposals that we have out now that are required by the Dodd-Frank Act, and we're in the process of getting comments on them. We don't have any rule proposals with regard to the environment out besides those.
Okay. Since I've been here, I have been seeking some sort of accountability for the blunders of the Madoff scandal. I don't think that's any secret at the SEC. And so far, to our knowledge, and there's been no discipline in the agency for allowing Madoff to plunder all those victims. No one's even been lectured, to our knowledge. No one's had their wrists slapped. Of course, nobody's been fired or demoted or been given any time off. Most of the people that I represent think that's abhorrent. They're offended by that. And quite frankly, I don't blame them. It doesn't bode well for the agency that it lets just a few incompetent employees cast such a bad shadow over so many other employees, hopefully, that get up and try and do a good day's work for the government every day. I've heard it said by people who have watched some of the other proceedings that it appears the agency is more concerned with protecting incompetent employees than protecting consumers on the street. And I think they arrived at that conclusion because each time I have asked the secretary or somebody from the agency what was happening in regard to accountability for the negligence or inaptitude or whatever it was of the employees, they said, well, we're still working on that. We have a process we have to go through. And the IG made a pretty clear inference of what was wrong. Books available in the public domain make it pretty clear the depth and level at which people were involved. And, you know, at this time, Madoff is in prison, and we still can't slap the wrist of an employee, and that just doesn't seem logical. So when we look at going forward with a reformed agency, you think the first step at reforming the agency would be to establish some kind of accountability and credibility for where we've been and where we are. I mean, you make a plan, you say, where we come from, where are we going to go? And I think without properly setting a foundation by admitting some culpability or establishing some type of accountability for the agency, you're just not going to get a whole lot of sympathy and support that you otherwise would have, and I'd like your comments on that.
Certainly, Congressman. Look, you know, the experience of the Madoff matter has left a deep imprint on the agency, and I've said it in these halls before, and I'll say it again. It was a horrible tragedy, and one for which we failed in our mission, and one for which we are doing many things across the agency to rectify. Speaking narrowly about the question of discipline, let me just give you some numbers and some timelines just to put it in context and then speak to the broader question. The Inspector General's report identified a total of 56 people mentioned in the report. Since that time, 35 people have left voluntarily. That leaves 21 persons. There are 6 disciplinary proposals working their way through the system. The reason it has taken some period of time, frankly, is because no proceedings began until after the Inspector General issued its report, which I believe was sometime, give or take, September of '09. Chairman Shapiro then ordered that an outside law firm conduct an independent, full, and complete review with recommendations, which took a period of time. Those recommendations were then are reviewed, and the process goes underway. The process, dictated by Office of Personnel Management rules and regulations, has certain protections and certain procedures that have to be followed. We hope that we are close to the end of that process, but I want Congress and the American people to know that we are not turning a blind eye to this. We understand the importance of it. We understand the expectations of the American people, and we're prepared to address it. With respect to the broader issue, as I said, it has informed so much of what all of us here have done since we've arrived. My restructuring of the Enforcement Division, the biggest one since 1972, was focused largely on the shortcomings that were identified as a result of that and other matters. Increased expertise so that people could understand complex matters. It wasn't just a Ponzi scheme. We do dozens and dozens and dozens of Ponzi schemes every year. It was a complicated split-strike conversion strategy having to deal with options, and that's not an excuse. Mr. Markopoulos identified the problems, but what it did reveal was that we didn't have enough places to go in order to fully understand, in that case, options trading and other types of expertise. So we've created specialized groups in order to do this. We understand that investment advisors who self-custody their own assets are a potential warning flag. Accounting firms that leave their engagements are a potential red flag. So we're now doing things like canvassing all hedge funds for aberrational performance. Anybody who is beating the market indexes by 3% and doing it on a steady basis, we're going to look
and let me
forward
interrupt,
to
because
that.
they're going to call me out of time here in a minute, but
Sure.
my point is not the future, but what we're doing about the misdeeds of the past. If half the people no longer work there, that's not a satisfactory discipline. That's not an answer. I said one time it's like a pedophile leaving a neighborhood and goes to another neighborhood. I mean, and my response is, well, they're all good people. I'm not saying they're not good people. I'm saying I hope the nicest thing we could say about them is they're incompetent. That's the nicest thing we could say about them for allowing to happen what did happen. And just saying they're no longer with the agency and we don't know where they are, that's not satisfactory. I think we'd like to know where they are. Are they investigating or examining for another agency? Or are they retired? And it'd just be good to know what happened to the people who were identified and who the agency has admitted were culpable in all this stuff, so that we don't put them in place, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for further failure. Thank you.
Let me just, the only reason I raise it is because we don't have jurisdiction over people who are no longer with the agency with respect to disciplinary issues. But I understand your request for the information about where they might be, and I'll see if we can provide that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman